Reporting to you from the WION newsroom. I'm joined by Dharamjot, who's right here in the newsroom with me. Dharamjot, the developments keep coming in. As of now, Jyotsna has given us, in a nutshell, of what exactly has transpired through the night for all our viewers. Anything more that has developed? We know that there is a cabinet committee security meeting later in the day. That's around 11 a.m. Dharamjot, anything further that you've picked up as we continue to bring all our viewers the developments?
Well, Shivan, the Ministry of External Affairs will be holding a press briefing at 10 a.m., which is just about 3 hours from now. So clearly there will be a statement coming out from that front as well. Of course, in an hour after that at 11 a.m. local time, there's going to be the cabinet meeting that we've been talking about, which will be headed by the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has been supervising these developments on real-time basis since 1:30 a.m. At night. So clearly a lot of developments, a lot of statements will be coming in, Shivan. It's going to be an action-packed day, a lot of questions that we still seek answers to, because what the 7th of May, what Wednesday was supposed to be all about in India was a series of mock drills that authorities were going to conduct, the first since the 1971 war. For so many years, India has not seen civil defense preparedness and mock drills being carried out at this scale. That is something that was supposed to happen later in the day at 4 p.m. today. Whether or not it's going to happen, that is still an open-ended question, because the last time we spoke about this, Indian Armed Forces joint strike had not been carried out yet. But as soon as the information and the announcement came on the wee hours at around 1:32 a.m. this morning, it's expected that a lot of changes will take place, a lot of developments will take place throughout the day. We're seeing a lot of escalation at the India-Pakistan international border and the LOC as well, as our correspondent Idris Loan has been rightly pointing out. A lot has intensified in terms of cross-border and artillery fire that is being witnessed, where 3 innocent civilians have lost their life from Pakistani fire. Now, how the situation further escalates and develops is something that we will be closely tracking here on the show. But again, big questions in terms of, one, military preparedness, civil preparedness along the borders, not just of Jammu and Kashmir, but also of Punjab, of Rajasthan, where exactly the situation stands. The Indian Armed Forces clearly have their hands full with respect to how this further develops, not just today, but also over the course of the next few days. Now, given this entire circumstance, again, it remains to be seen how a lot of international leaders and other communities would also respond to this. We already heard from the US President Donald Trump. Also, more statements will be expected throughout the day. The sun is rising, the world is waking up to this entire targeted strike that the Indian Armed Forces carried out on 9 key locations of terror camps in Pakistan's Punjab province and also in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. A lot of developments we'll be tracking in terms of how they come in. We need to be hearing more in terms of exact information of this entire strike from the Indian Armed Forces. That press conference will be held later in the evening.
Absolutely, Dharamjot, of course, I feel like the writing has been on the wall for all these past few days that we've been tracking developments. This was, of course, would have been an otherwise 13th night of Pakistani cross-armed ceasefire violations, but this was different, wasn't it? And how we've seen things pan out over the course of the wee hours of this morning, that really does raise the spectre of an all-out escalation going forward. Of course, we are waiting for how things will unfold. But just that being said, Dharamjot, if we were to look at the retaliation as well, we're seeing how Pakistan is targeting civilians, pretty much on script for them. What do you have to say about what we can expect, what's to come what's to come going forward?
Well, Haim, I think the reaction that's coming from Pakistan is something that, they pretty much, sort of laid out for us in the last couple of weeks. Ever since the Pahalgam terror attack on April 22nd, we've seen all kinds of reaction coming out of, India's neighbor, from the officials and from other fronts. Every other sort of reaction except one of joint solution with India, one of trying to take course correction measures to eradicate or at least curtail the terror infrastructure within Pakistani territory. But apart from that, we've seen all other reactions, all other statements coming up here. You know, as we've been talking in the past few weeks, top leadership of Pakistan has made big statements in terms of, and a lot of alarmist reactions in terms of when and how India is going to attack. They said it's going to happen within 24 to 36 hours. Then they said it's going to happen within 3 to 4 days. All of this was last week. After that, we had Pakistan's envoy approaching the UNSC to try and get some sort of global interference into this bilateral issue between India and Pakistan. But again, on that front, you know, they found a closed door and they didn't really succeed on that aspect. And now, once the Indian Armed Forces have carried out the targeted strike in the wee hours of the morning, we're seeing the sudden escalation from Pakistani forces, not terror camps, but legitimate forces of Pakistan Army. So this is something that the Indian Armed Forces were prepared for. It's something they expected was going to happen. It's something that they've been seeing happening for years now already. But how this escalates, the hope is that it doesn't escalate further, as we've been talking to our special correspondent Idris as well. The hope on the ground is it doesn't escalate further. If it does, when it does, rest assured, we've seen it before, we'll see it again. The Indian Armed Forces have always been prepared and are still prepared to ensure that the situation is dealt with.
Absolutely, Dharamjot. Of course, you've mentioned some pertinent points there as well, how these, we are talking about the Pakistani forces here. Also, in the lead up to this entire episode, we have also seen that there were plenty of opportunities for Pakistan. One, to condemn the terror attack. Two, to perhaps work with India, which of course is perhaps a big ask at this point from Pakistan, but that opportunity did exist. Now we're seeing a resolute, strong response by India, and we're seeing how Pakistan is now scrambling, of course following the original script, now hitting back at civilian targets. It's the Pakistani forces again. You know, Dharamjot, I believe it's also important to unpack how deeply intertwined the terror infrastructure as well as the forces, and what all of this points to. That's something that needs to be discussed as well.
You're absolutely right, Haim. In fact, this is a conversation that began yet again after the Pahalgam terror attack. Within one day, we had Indian military officials identifying and intelligence officials identifying 42 terror launch pads within Pakistan territory and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Now, having said that, this is not the first time they've done so. They've been doing it for years. There have been so many terror launch pads, terror recruitment camps, and terror training camps. All three separate facilities. There's an entire process that these terror organizations follow, be it the Jaish, be it Hizbul Mujahideen, or be it Lashkar-e-Toiba. They have this process of recruiting people, indoctrinating them, then training them on in several military ways, and then sending them out to these launch pads through which they infiltrate into India's borders. It's an apparatus we've seen, 2 weeks ago, it's an apparatus we saw. 2 years ago, it's an apparatus we saw 20 years ago. It's been in existence for that long, and it's something that we've heard from Pakistani leadership confirming themselves on news channel interviews, where they've said that, well, we've been doing US's dirty work for the past 30 years in terms of the terror activities that I've been talking about. So it's all out there in the open. The point here is that at what juncture does Pakistan officially come and sit on the table with India, hash out these details, hash out these issues, and admit that, yes, there is a terror infrastructure problem that they have. There is a terror financing problem that they have. And for so many years, they've been talking about how it's something that has been affecting them within their own homes as well, that they've been victims of terrorism. But, well, if Pakistan has been a victim of terrorism, at what point does Pakistan stop turning a blind eye to the terror infrastructure, and to say so, stop even actively giving support or any sort of state apparatus to these terror infrastructures? So that is a very crucial question, Haim. Unfortunately, we come back to this question every few years when a ghastly terror attack like this happens. We talked about this during Pulwama. We talked about this during other terror attacks. And Uri, for example, Pulwama in 2019, now in Pahalgam, and we're back, the circle, it comes full circle. We're back at the same conversation again.
Absolutely. Now, of course, perhaps for some of our viewers who are just waking up to all that's happening, let's just bring them up to speed. At around 1:44 a.m. in the wee hours of Wednesday, India launched what it calls Operation Sindur. This is the statement by the Ministry of Defence. I'm just going to read this out for all of our viewers to bring you up to speed with what's happened so far. This is the Ministry of Defence statement. A little while ago, the Indian Armed Forces launched Operation Sindur, hitting terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, from where terrorist attacks against India have been planned and directed. Altogether, 9 states have been targeted. Our actions have been focused, measured and non-escalatory in nature. No Pakistani military facilities have been targeted. India has demonstrated considerable restraint in selection of targets and method of execution. These steps come in the wake of the barbaric Pahalgam terrorist attack, in which 25 Indians and 1 Nepali citizen was murdered. We are living up to the commitment that those responsible for this attack will be held accountable.